The Nimble with Numbers team presents Chalked Blocked with Bo Big Time McBrayer.
I gotta know what a $5 shake tastes like.
That's hot. That's hot.
I want winners, folks. You don't know diddly.
And his partner, Scott Stag Simpson.
Do you know who I am?
Trying to put Tiger Bomb on this jungle's nuts.
That's cute. I remember when I had my first beer.
I gotta catch a glimpse of these warlocks. Let's make a move. Let's make a move. Let's make a move.
Hey, you guys! Welcome back to Chalk Blocked, the world's sexiest DFS show for now. This is a Nimble with Numbers production. Check out the YouTube page and smash the subscribe button. Might as well jingle that little bell thingy for alerts too. We're also brought to you live on the worldwide sports radio network, now part of iRadio USA. I'm Bo McBrayer, joined as always by Nimble himself, Scott Simpson, Senor Stakos. Actually, that sounds more like a Greek yogurt brand than I thought it would be. Last week, Scott's net zero free trial he got from the centerfold of Better Homes and Garden magazine was expired. Give me an update on that Wi-Fi, Scott. Nobody cares. Jordan, the mathematician Vanek, is now on assignment trying to hunt down that goddamn stingray that took Stewart Irwin from us. We're approaching the start of the NFL regular season at what feels like the pace of Tom Brady's 40-yard dash. We are shifting gears to bring more DFS to join the sexiness. There are certain people we see all the time with us on top of the DraftKings leaderboards. These mercenaries are dormant most of the year, prepping their spreadsheets and value formulas. Sleeper cells, if you will. Our special guest tonight is an NFL DFS assassin. One of the most formidable opponents we've ever confronted. He's a DFS affiliate at Draft Dashboard and writes alongside me at goingfor2.com. We lured him here with the promise of lemon-flavored snow cones, but he's really here for us to perform experiments on his brain. Bundle up because we're all aboard. Hoot, hoot. The Yeti Express. Jared Good. What's good, Mr. Good?
You know what, guys? I'm so happy to be here. And the best thing about this podcast is I get to finally meet Scott. I've known him, for about a year, and I get to hang out with you, Bo, which is, awesome. I'm starting to get to know you a little bit better. And then all of a sudden I look at the bio of this podcast. I'm like, I'm on the world's sexiest DFS podcast. I don't even know if I'm that good looking yet.
You are now.
You qualify. People are looking at me and looking at Bo, and then they're looking at you and they're going, yeah.
Contrast.
Yeah.
Contrast.
Yeah. You're doing great. I feel really good about you coming on. Thank you for reaching out. And we have talked on Twitter, but I've never got to see you. And so it's always cool to get to see somebody and meet somebody for the first time, like face to face. And doing podcasting is awesome. So welcome, Jared. So excited you're here. And Bo is not bullshitting you guys. This guy would be in our drafts last year, taking our capital, our hard-earned cash.
Sometimes.
And so, listen.
Yeah. He was always there, though. He was always there. And I was always looking at his white, furry avatar to be like, who the heck is this Yeti guy? Because I'm sick of seeing him up here with us. Sometimes we'd get him, and sometimes he'd get us. But that's the mark of a true professional, is that if he's up there with us every week, or we're looking up at him, or we're looking down right, but like he's on our heels all the time, it's unnerving to think that somebody else is that good. And so we're gonna perform a frontal lobotomy tonight. We're gonna figure out what makes this guy tick.
Oh yeah, definitely. And what I'm excited about is that even though we don't have Jordan here right now, he's with us in spirit. And we appreciate Jordan out there looking for that stingray that you said killed Steve Irwin, that MFer. Go with God. And I think the amount of facial hair, the amount of facial hair Jordan has is the same exact amount as Steve Irwin had. So it's very fitting that a baby boy is out looking for us.
He actually has as much hair on his face as the stingray did.
Exactly. So, Godspeed, Jordan. Float on back when you're done. We'd love to have you back here anytime. You are always welcome here. But we've got somebody a little bit more real than Jordan tonight, and that is Jared. So we're going to get into it. Bo, we've got some segments in the way that I staggered the show sheet now that they're kind of segmented and sponsored. Why don't you kick off the first segment? And I have my show sheets not pulled up, so I'm not sure if I'm supposed to do it or you're supposed to do it, but I'll throw it to you, and then you can do it. I'm having some technical difficulties. Surprise here in Maryland.
I'm pulling it up. So yeah, net zero hasn't been a thing for a while, Scott. Let's see.
Juno, it's Juno, and it goes
Juno. So yeah, did your mom pick up the phone last week? Because that's what it seemed like.
Man, that was just so embarrassing last week. But then you saw what happened when it got right, and I could talk, and then Kudoodle was there, and it was money, and it was fine. So,
all right, I got the show sheet. I got it.
I got it. I got it too. I got it. Okay, all right. So we're gonna do a little get to know Jared, and this is sponsored by Underdog. Please.
See, I told you were first.
I know. I got it. I saw it. Please go to Underdog right now. If you make a deposit, a one-time deposit, put a little change in there, a little $10, something as simple as $10. Going to give you a free $25 that you can use to play Best Ball Mania 2, win yourself $1 million, or you could break it up and do 5 puppies. That's a little smaller tournament. The grand prize, I think, is $100K for that. Only $5 to enter. Please use promo code Nimble. Bo gets paid. I get paid. Mike gets paid. And we have, big parties with the money.
If you draft with Scott, you will get paid too.
Right, you'll be guaranteed to win if you're drafting with me. So, all right. So this segment is kind of the get to know Jared, and I will throw it to Bo for the first question.
To Pitts or not to Pitts? That's the question. Are you a Kyle Pitts guy at his current ADP? Because everybody seems to love the kid, but not at his ADP, and that's the sticking point for most people. Are you a Kyle Pitts guy at his current ADP?
So I feel like this is going to be a half an hour segment because I know how you guys think. But for me, I love Kyle Pitts at his ADP, and here's why. Because you're looking at Waller, Kelsey, and Kittle as the top 3 tight ends, which are all gone by about round 1.5 to 2. You're depending on what kind of draft you're in and what kind of league you're working with. Those guys are gone early. But Kyle Pitts is going around the 45 to 50 range in drafts, which depending on what kind of league you're at, that's almost like a round and a half or 2 rounds later. I'm a huge Kyle Pitts guy, and here's my reasoning for it. I love the kid at Florida. All he does is catch touchdowns. He's huge. He's athletic. He's kind of small for a tight end is kind of my take on him. Like he's going to play a little slot too, I think, for the Falcons. But the big thing is Julio Jones is gone, and that's a lot of target shares that you guys are going to be missing out if you're an Atlanta guy. And there's a lot of people that believe that Calvin Ridley is going to get 15 targets a game. I'm just not one of them. So I'm buying in. One of the biggest things that I actually reached out to Twitter on today was would you draft Calvin Ridley ahead of DeAndre Hopkins? Because DeAndre Hopkins is going at ADP pick of two slots later than Calvin Ridley. So that kind of surprised me in a way, just because I'm a big Hopkins guy and I think he's super consistent. But there's going to be targets to be had in Atlanta, and they're either going to go to Ridley or they're going to go to Pitts. And I think that Pitts is going to pick up some extra targets even as a rookie. He's going to see more targets than the average rookie, and I think there's a lot to be had in that.
Yeah, I agree completely. When I wrote my Kyle Pitts article, the folklore of the mythical beast Kyle Pitts that he is, we're looking at, even if they dial back the passing offense, I'm still looking at that defense being so atrocious that Matt Ryan's still going to back into that 600 pass territory over a 17-game season now that we have an extra game to get 35, 40 more passing attempts. And if you, let's say Ridley duplicates his target volume from last year with, I think, 135. So about 9 per game over a 17-game slate. If you give Calvin Ridley 9 targets a game and you give Gage his 100 targets, maybe even a little bit more, that leaves 125 targets if nobody else gets more work. If the running backs get no more work, if Hayden Hurst gets no more work, you have 125 targets for anybody. And they just drafted the guy 4th overall. 4th. They already knew they weren't going to pay Julio. They didn't know if they're going to trade him or not, but they definitely knew they weren't going to pay him. And there's a glaring need at the X receiver because I think Ridley's more cut out for the Z receiver position. He's more of a slight frame. Julio is a big receiver. He was also extremely fast and athletic and great at running routes and great hands. He did everything perfectly. He's one of the best receivers to ever play the game. I'm not putting Pitts in that territory, but he fills that X receiver role really well. And when you have Arthur Smith coming into town, it sheds light on what he likes to do as somebody who calls plays. And he likes to move his best playmaker or best playmakers around in the formation to give them isolation. And there's not a defender in the NFL that can match up with Kyle Pitts one-on-one. He's too big or too fast for every single defender he's going to face. They're going to have to account for him or Ridley, and they can't do both. And so as bad as I think that Mike Davis is as a running back, I don't think he's any good. I think they overpaid him. They threw a bunch of money at a guy who was a journeyman before he filled in for Christian McCaffrey last year. I think he's going to be in a committee before week 7. You're going to have a lot of passing attempts. You're going to have a lot of comebacks. You're going to have a lot of garbage time on a pretty bad Atlanta team. And it just takes volume. Give the guy 125 targets, and if he turns 65 to 70% of those targets into catches, which would be below his expected average because the guy catches everything. He didn't have any drops in college. Zero drops. Every target that he had that was on target was caught. And he scored a touchdown on 13% of his targets last year. That's insanity. So you're talking about a replacement for Julio Jones that might actually be better in the red zone at scoring touchdowns than Julio Jones ever was. And so my projections, I mean, you might have already seen this, but I have the highest projections for Kyle Pitts this year of anybody that I've seen. I have him for 85 catches, 1,200 yards, and 12 touchdowns.
I think one of the most important things that you said there, Bo, is they're going to be down by a lot. And most of these games, they're going to be playing from behind. They're not going to be a good team. Like when you invest your draft capital into certain people, sometimes it's hard to be like, oh, yeah, I want to draft Odell Beckham on the Giants because they're going to be down all the time. But it's proven that, when you are down, you need to play catch-up. And how do you play catch-up? You throw the ball. And whether you're not throwing – either you're throwing to Ridley or you're throwing to Pitts, you're going to be down. You're going to be throwing. I expect – in the Scott Fish Bowl, I was really high on Matt Ryan, which is super quarterback predominant. And a lot of the quarterbacks went really fast. And I get why they did, but I was like, I got to a position where I'm like, okay, I can sleep on quarterback a little bit because I'm going to draft Matt Ryan, who's going to throw 40 times a game, and it's either going to work out or it's not. But the volume is going to be there.
And to touch on that too, Arthur Smith last year with Jonnu Smith had 8 touchdowns. So that was with Jonnu Smith, 8 touchdowns. So that was with Jonnu Smith. Let me explain. Jonnu Smith is not the same as Kyle Pitts. I know that Jonnu Smith is a professional. He's done it for longer, but his body and his abilities are just not the same. They're not going to be the same. And so if you can get 8 touchdowns out of him, 12 touchdowns doesn't seem egregious.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right on the money because Arthur Smith loves running 12 personnel, and he's got 2 tight ends now. He's got Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst was a first-round draft pick a couple years ago, and he's definitely a better blocker. He's more experienced. He has that whole inline tight end position that Jonnu ran last year. We saw Jonnu kind of tail off at the end of the year when Taylor Lewan got injured because they're like, okay, between you and Ferkser, who blocks better? And that was Jonnu. So Jonnu took the inline position, and Ferkser was in the slot 70% of his snaps. So guess what? Who's the better blocker between Hayden Hurst and Kyle Pitts? Of course it's Hayden Hurst. Who's going to be on the line when they run that 12 personnel 50% of their plays? Hayden Hurst. And guess who's going to be running the slot or out wide left against everybody's second best corner when Calvin Ridley's going to be matched up against the best guy, because you got to have a guy who can run with Calvin Ridley, and that's not easy either. Kyle Pitts is going to be facing a secondary corner pretty much every game, or he's going to be matched up against linebackers or safeties, and it's just going to be like week 1. I'm going to ask you the next question, Jared. Week 1, Atlanta versus Philly. Don't answer this yet, but if you're thinking cash games or tournaments, what's your preference in format and why? And what have you had the most success with? And then parlay that into what's going to happen in week 1 between Atlanta and Philly.
So I am more of a tournament player. Cash games, I mean, cash games I like. I love the good cash game. But I feel like a lot of the lineups out there, just because of different websites and how they run their projections, get copied. So then you're paying kind of the juice in a way on most of those things. But like, I would say I'm more of a tournament player just because I enjoy going for I enjoy going for it all. You know, like that's why we're all here. We're not here to win $1.80 or $9, you know, depending on what your cash game is, you know, like it's different for everybody, but I am a big tournament guy, you know, like let's go for it. Let's have fun this weekend and go for the big win. And the second question, I mean, if you're asking me if I'm going to play Kyle Pitts in tournaments or cash games, I'm going to have him everywhere in week 1.
Yeah,
he's just too cheap. You know, DraftKings dropped the ball on rookies, all rookies. I mean, Jalen Waddle's 3,500. You know, I was spent a lot of time in my day today looking on the computer just at salaries and projections and stuff, and I was like, what did they do with these rookies? You know, it's unbelievable how cheap they are. I'm not a huge Jalen Waddle guy, but like 3,500. I mean, dude needs to catch 5 balls for 60 yards, and he's there. You know,
well,
so
I mean. You're exactly right. And I think I talked to Denny Carter today about it. Patrick Mahomes is $7,000. Like they want a bloodbath. They are someone might score 300 points. Someone might freaking score 300 points on Sunday, first week of the season, not this Sunday, because you're going to have so much action and so many people are going to get to play. It's going to be wild. And
they're going to be able to play pretty much whoever they want because the salaries are depressed.
Anybody. I mean, Elijah Moore, $3,000. Don't tell anybody. I hope I'm the only one who can see that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like when you're invisible and no one can see you. I hope no one can see that. Elijah Moore for $3,000. Holy crap! Terrace Marshall against the Jets. Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go change my pants because these rookie wide receivers are going to have a lot of playing time. And if you're on the field a lot and you're pretty darn athletic like Elijah Moore and Terrace Marshall and Kyle Pitts are, you're going to get some targets. And if you get targets, you might actually catch some. And if you catch some, those are points. At least 1 point for each one of those catches. Yeah. And with how gifted these rookies are, their prices, I mean, I think if I look back, I'm pretty sure the same exact thing happened last year where week 1 was an absolute shit show because all the rookies were depressed in pricing and you had some surprising performances. Like you had rookies that were put right out there and they performed and their prices were never that low again for the rest of the season. Justin Jefferson comes to mind.
No, you're exactly right. I did forget to ask a question as we jump around the show sheet. I'm going to go back to ask Jared a question. Jared, here's a question. How did you get started, by the way, in fantasy particularly, and then how did that transition into DFS? Or did you kind of just come right off, you know, you're born out of your mom's, you know, whatever, and then you're like, DFS, this is for me.
Or whatever.
Whatever, you know. I mean, listen. It could have been.
I skipped that question because I was reading down the show sheet like you called me on just now.
I was homeschooled, so I didn't really learn what happened during that time.
So I actually got started playing fantasy football when I was 10 or 11. I was a co-owner on my grandpa's team, and my grandpa's team was awesome. Like he was the most decorated guy in the league. He won the division every year, you know, and so I was like this is back to the Trent Green days with the Kansas City Chiefs. Like this is a long time ago, you know? And so I was like a co-owner, but you know, I didn't have any money involved. I was just being a mind through my grandpa basically. So I was a co-owner and we talked about things and, you know, then I got to get in the point in the league where somebody dropped out and I got to have my own team. I was like 13 or 14. And I was just really successful at it. You know, I was a good player and, you know, I won a lot of I wouldn't say I won a lot of my leagues, but I took second or third, you know, for a long period of time. And so I was making money, you know, and so I was looking, you know, one day and I was like, oh yeah, have you tried this DFS thing? You know, a buddy of mine reached out to me. He's like, hey, it's kind of fun, So I'm like, all right, yeah, like I know what I'm talking about, like I know who's good, I know who's not, I know who's on what team, I know who I know who the worst cornerback in the league is, like I know who's gonna get burned, like you look into like things like that, like that's what's so important in DFS is there's so much research that's able to be had, and the average person doesn't do that research. They're like, oh yeah, it's Sunday, I want to play, and the Rams are going to score 100 points. Like let me just load up the Rams. Like that's how the average person thinks. Like there's a lot of sharp minds within the DFS community, and I would say on both sites, even FanDuel compared to DraftKings. I mean, I've had more success on FanDuel, but I play more on DraftKings now just because I like the format more. But yeah, so I kind of like transitioned my fantasy football, just redraft leagues success into getting into weekly, like, oh, I get paid every week, like I'd rather get paid every week than once a year, So that was kind of like my transition phase. And it really didn't take that long for me to like sit down and be like, this is for me or this isn't for me. Like there's a lot of like computer work that goes into stuff. Like there's a lot of, it's just one of those things. Like if you're somebody that wants to play DFS, like take the extra time to research, take the time to research who is the worst cornerback in the league. Like who has the best cornerback matchup. Take the time to know how defenses work, what they give up to. Like there's defenses that give up, more catches and more receiving yards to running backs than other defenses. Like take the time to do that, because like that'll go so far, especially on DraftKings when it's a full point PPR. Like it sounds so simple, but like there's a lot of people that just don't do that research. So I think the best thing I can say is like take an hour out of your week to just look at shit, That's the best thing I can say.
Do your research, people. Don't leave it to listen. Or we'll plug later. Or you can check out nimblewnumbers.com and you can check out the Fantasy Yeti Express and check out the work we're doing. If you don't want to think for yourselves, we can help you there. So I'm not going to say.
Or you can be like Scott and read my articles and then try to use them against me.
It did work a few times. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, except for the time Jared, let me tell you this. This guy here is such a bastard that he decided to bet me head-to-head every week. We had a head-to-head. It was at least like $30-40 value every week. One week, though, it was the jobs. And I had to write 2 articles each week. He had to write 2 articles each week. So I lost, and then I had to write 4 effing articles that week.
And that was like, I think that was my biggest margin of victory all year because I didn't want to do anything.
And Bo sat down and is like, screw this. I don't care how many hours I got to put. I'm out this week.
Well, it coincided with the week of my work at school, which was the most intense all year. And it also coincided with a week which I had set up beforehand where I was going to look at nobody else's projections and nobody else's research but my own. And so that was a terrible mistake as well. And so, yeah.
And even then, it was your idea the whole time.
Yeah, it was. And I thought of it the whole time. It was me. It was my fault, So, but I'm excited. All right, I got a question for you. Even though, Bo, I did kind of throw it to you in the DMs.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, who do you think? Because you're from Minnesota here. I don't want to prejudice you and say I know you're going to say the Vikings, but who is going to win the NFC North, and then how? How does it? What happens? Why does it work out the way it works out? What do you think, Jared?
Who's going to win?
And then how does it happen?
That's a stupid question. The Vikings are going to win. We're going to be 12-5 this year. Dalvin Cook is a top 3 running back. Justin Jefferson's a top 10 wide receiver. Kirk Cousins is a little bit better than a serviceable quarterback at this point, but he's fairly accurate. And the biggest thing with the Vikings is their defense was atrocious last year. They were absolutely garbage. But the big reason why they were garbage was because they had a million injuries and they just weren't good. You're missing Danielle Hunter, you're missing all these guys. And that was like a huge thing for the Vikings. And then, so as a Viking fan, like I was really like kind of like headhunting on Mike Zimmer last year, just because like You know what? Like Zimmer for years and years and years has been like, I'm this big defensive coordinator. This is where I came from. This is what I do. I'm a big defensive guy. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. And then all of a sudden I look into it and I'm like, dude, our defense has gotten worse every single year under Mike Zimmer. So that's kind of like in Minnesota, like people love like I could go on and on for days, but like people here loved like Ron Gardenhire. That was like the Minnesota guy, like the Minnesota way. Like people just fall in love with the guy and he'll be here for as long as he wants to be. Zimmer, I'm a little different on because like if he doesn't show me that his defense can perform this year, like I expect the Vikings to be at least a top 15 defense, if not a top 10 defense this year. They got a lot better this offseason, but they got off-field issues too. We just lost Gladney to we just cut him because he had off the field troubles. Yeah. And that's one of those things where like you look back and you're like, dude, we drafted this dude in the first round, like what's going on, and then so we've had a lot of like that kind of stuff going on. We've had injuries, we've had COVID, we've had I'm going to sit out guy, which I believe is Mike Pierce. He didn't want to play last year because of COVID. This defense should be phenomenally better. I wouldn't say that they're going to be like top 5 or anything. Like some people are saying within in the Minnesota community, which we're all crazy. So don't choke us on that. But I think we can absolutely be a top 15 defense, which I think would go a long way with our top 5 offense last year.
So, yeah, I think parts of your brains haven't thawed out for the summer. That's got to be it because, I think I have the Vikings defense rated 27th because even though they got healthy, the people that are getting healthy, the people they've added weren't metrically that good. I actually think Gladney getting cut actually helps them a little bit because Gladney was metrically one of the worst corners in the entire league last season as a rookie. So, yeah, it's a nightmare. Like they're getting some good pass rushers back. Daniil Hunter coming back really helps them out. But that whole unit is rough. Like it's like the continuity is I just don't see how they're going to be a decent defense, even if they are healthier.
I think one of the big things is we have veteran leadership at the corners now. And I think that's going to go a long way with how Zimmer wants to run his defense with Patrick Peterson and Brashard Breeland. I heard veteran corners, and all I can think about is getting roasted by deep balls. Yeah, I think that's going to help. Honestly, I do because I think that we had such youth at our corners for so long. We had Mike Hughes, we had Gladney, we had all these young first round picks because that's all Zimmer drafts is in the first 3 rounds as cornerbacks. He's done it for years, and every year we draft, I'm like, oh, let me guess, we're going to take another corner here, So I don't know. I think we'll be better, but I'm going to put us at top 15. I know last year we were extremely bad, but I think there's going to be a vast improvement this year because we're getting some guys back, and that'll help us a long ways.
You better hope I'm wrong then.
I'll be able to tell you if you are.
Oh, yeah.
I want Bo to be right because what it means is that there's going to be lots of points scored, and I've got lots of Irv Smith shares, and I've got a little bit of Justin Jefferson. So I'm hoping Bo's right. I'm going for Bo.
Yeah, Jefferson's shoulder, that looked really gnarly. So he lucked out today.
What happened? I was golfing.
He left practice today with a shoulder injury.
Yeah, he landed really hard on his left shoulder, and it looked like because as soon as he hit the ground, he reached for his collarbone. So everybody's thinking, might have broken his collarbone, but apparently he just sprained his AC joint, which is a lot better because collarbones are 6 to 8 weeks and AC joints are week to week. So
neither one of them sounds good to me, but yeah, I'll trust you on that one.
Yeah, they both hurt, but he can play with an AC, but you can't play with a collarbone, just with your arm floating around. But yeah, I think the Packers have that division locked up. I mean, in my opinion, that's the most complete team in the NFC. In my opinion, they have the best offensive defensive combination. Rodgers coming back really just eliminates any worry that you have that the Packers will be in the hunt. They're a very balanced offense. That LaFleur Shanahan system is super lethal when they have everybody healthy. Bakhtiari is going to be back. that's a scary team because their defense is above average. And if they can keep the pass rush intact, and I mean, all they have to do is stop the run a little bit better. And I have a feeling they're going to start stomping on teams when their schedule opens up. And that's why I think the Vikings, even if I have them projected fourth in that division, they're not going to be too far under 500 because it's a tough go. The NFC is just so loaded, and so the Packers have a favorable schedule in the middle of the season. I think they're just gonna put distance between themselves and the Bears and the Lions. But I see the Vikings and the Lions kind of fighting it out for the basement there.
I'll tell you what, there is no way in hell the Lions are going to be better than us. I'll give you. So the Packers are a very complete team, and my wife is a Packers fan. A lot of her family is a Packers fan.
No.
So I have to hear it every single year, every holiday. I hear it nonstop. And it's funny. Like my son is turning 6 in July, and I was like, "Are you going to be a Viking fan or are you going to be a Packer fan?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to be a Viking fan like you, Dad." And I'm like, "That a boy, you better gear up because we're going to we're going to hear it." But the Packers are a super complete team. I think one of the most underrated moves in the offseason, and this is going to be kind of open to both of you guys, but what are you guys doing with Randall Cobb? I think, in my opinion, if Rodgers wants the guy there, he's going to throw him the ball. That's just my opinion. But I also think the Packers are a super complete team. They got a very good wide receiver one in Devontae Adams, best in the league. Aaron Jones is probably a top 15 running back easily. They're just solid. They're deep. The one thing I knocked on the Packers for years and years and years was their defense wasn't all that great. Their defense has gotten significantly better. Jair Alexander is one of the best secondary players in the entire league. So I'm not going to sit here and throw a bunch of smoke at the Packers, but I'll tell you what, if the Vikings get the cylinders clicking, we're taking down that division, and we ain't in the basement. I'll tell you that much. The Bears will be lucky if Fields is even handing the ball off.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, I see the Bears switching to Fields right away, and Fields is special in my book, and with the defense as good as it is in Chicago. If Fields is as good as I think he is, and combined with that defense and the receiver talent they have and the running back talent and the offensive line they have, that's a team that can really compete. I don't think the Vikings are a bad team. I just think they're going to have a brutally tough road with some more improved teams than they are. And I don't believe in Kirk Cousins as far as I can throw him. Because as good as Jefferson and Thielen are, as great as Dalvin Cook is, as good of a product as Irv Smith is, Kirk Cousins, when he's forced to come back in games, which I believe they might have to a bunch this year, that's when you see the bad Kirk Cousins, because he's not an accurate passer under pressure. He's a lot like Derek Carr. And I think when I look at Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins side by side, they're the same picture. And of course, Kirk Cousins gets a lot more room for error because his receiver core is way better.
You like that?
You like that?
You like that? Kirk
so with the Bears, the big question mark, and some people might not even think it's a question mark, but it's Fields. And to me, when I actually followed college a little bit last season, not as much as I usually do, but there was a game versus Northwestern where Fields played absolutely terrible and got saved by Trey Sermon, who had 295 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. It was unbelievable.
Yep.
And I look at it, I'm like, dude, how did this guy go so high? And then I look at the next game, I'm like, oh, he tore up Clemson. So it's kind of like, what Fields do you get? Do you get Fields that tears up Clemson, or you get Fields that struggles against Northwestern? That's the big thing with me for Fields. I'm kind of on the fence with him. I have him I have a couple shares of him just because he tore up the best team in the nation. But then there's also times where I've been on the clock and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, he struggled against Northwestern. So kind of depends on what Fields we're going to get, really.
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a big apologist now. I mean, but in the Northwestern game, people don't know this, but Northwestern was the best secondary in the entire nation last year. Best pass defense, period. They were top 5 overall in the nation out of 200 schools in total defense. And them getting shredded by Sermon was actually a shocker. Like, it was more stunning to see them get diced up by Trey Sermon than it was for Fields to have some struggles where he had a couple picks. But he threw to none of his good. Like, most of that team at that point was in the throes of COVID. Like, that was right in the middle where half of their total active roster was completely out. And then, of course, they get healthy just in time for the Clemson game, and he pretty much had diced them up first on the ground. He took that shot and broke his lower ribs on the right side, and he still went for 4 more touchdowns against the most complex defense in the nation. So not the best overall in metric wise, but Clemson, Will Venable's defense, they run a pro style defense. Like, that's why you see all these great defensive players come out of Clemson. They're right away, they're good to go for the NFL. And to see Fields not just beat them, but score 6 touchdowns on them with 2 broken ribs, there's nothing in the league that's going to be like that. More adversity than that, because the pressure is, like, in that situation that he rose to, it was immense, and he rose to that and dominated, like, absolutely took over the game. And I'll give him all the credit in the world for that. And you can have bad games. If you're going to have bad games, do it against the best defense that you've seen in your college career in Northwestern. And I'll say, yeah, he looked like crap, but I mean, at least he has the out that, like, Northwestern made a lot of good quarterbacks look like crap last year.
I'm not going to argue with any of that, Bo. But
I'm a big college guy. I'm a junkie for football in general. I go to high school games and just be like, oh, I need a fix. I need my football fix. Pop Warner, you got potential, kid.
There's some restraining orders against Bo in several states. I'll say this: we're gonna table the controversial food take for the end. We'll save it for the end.
That's fine.
Yeah. But we do have our next segment sponsored by your hot sauce, Bo. Why don't you tell the people about where they can get Mr. Bo McBig Time's Hot Box small batch gourmet hot sauce at?
So this is the deep burn, a deep burn, so deep. But it's brought to you by Hotbox Gourmet Small Batch Hot Sauce. Here's your merch on Viridian Global. You can get T-shirts, hats. Yeah, go to Viridian Global, get all kinds of stuff, like our fancy Scott Fishbowl shirts here, all sorts of fantasy football apparel for players, teams, and, of course, my hot sauce brand, which has become a complete flavor brand at bigtimeflavor.co. It's the official punch in the mouth of fantasy football, enjoyed by such characters you might have heard of, like Field Yates from ESPN, Matt Harmon from The Reception Perception, Scott Fish himself. They're all huge fans of the products that we get at bigtimeflavor.co. It is my brainchild. It's what I like to do in the free time I really don't have. And so if you go to bigtimeflavor.co right now or tomorrow, I mean, I'm a procrastinator too. So if you go whenever you go and you enter the promo code CHALK21, CHALK 21, you're going to get 10% off your entire order. And that's something that I'm extending to the people who consume the fantasy football stuff that we do, or the shenanigans that we pull every Friday night. Bigtimeflavor.co, promo code CHALK21. That'll get you 10% off your order. Go and try the Big Time Flavor Bundle, which has all 5 of the products on the site in a bundle for a lower price. So, with the deep burn, I need to know, Jared, who are the players that you're hotter on than the consensus?
Number 1 for me is Cortland Sutton. And it might not be a popular answer in the room. Cortland Sutton, when he was healthy, was averaging around 9 targets per game with the Denver Broncos. He hasn't been healthy in a long time. Don't get me wrong. Like, this dude is definitely got to get healthy, and there's a lot more to it than that. Like, there's a lot of people that love the Jerry Judys of the world, and there's a lot of people that are like that. But Sutton was getting targets. He was performing, and his ADP is around 7.10, which, depending on how you draft, is a wide receiver 3. If you tell me my wide receiver 3 is going to get 9 targets per game, I mean, sign me up. I'm all there on that. He's definitely my top guy that I am absolutely in on when it comes to guys that are undervalued. And I think a lot of that has to do with Judy, and Judy's a great player as well. I think that the Denver Broncos are not going to be playing from ahead a lot of times, but I also don't think they're going to be a super heavy pass offense either. So kind of take it with a grain of salt, but I'm really big on Sutton. The other guy I talked about earlier was Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts he's just undervalued. I mean, if you have Kelsey, I mean, I'm going to say this 10 times on this podcast. If you have Kelsey,
we're here for it. You have full support behind you here.
Kelsey Waller and Kittle are gone by 2.5. You're getting Pitts at 4.5 or even later. Like, you're getting tight end 4 plus a guy. He's going to play freaking tight end and wide receiver at the same time. He's going to be everywhere. I just don't see where those Julio Jones targets don't go. At least half of those don't go to him. Like, I just don't see it. So I think he's super undervalued. And another guy that I think is super undervalued, and this is, again, it's another health concern, and it's the same thing every year when we talk about this guy. It's James Conner. I believe Chase Edmonds was really only in on like 40% of the running back share for his entire career. It was something around that number. So that leaves me to think that James Conner is going to take 60% if he's healthy. He's probably going to get a lot of the goal line work. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's going ADP like 120. I just think he's somebody that's undervalued. And then my absolute deepest sleeper is Jerick McKinnon. CEH gets hurt all the time. I mean, it's kind of been a track record for him. He's been hurt a lot. And if you get a guy in the best offense in the entire league, I mean, why wouldn't you take their running back? So, who also catches a lot of balls out of the backfield and has Minnesota ties. So why wouldn't you? But
I think that's the last time he played as well. He's got some health concerns too.
He does. But I think Jerick McKinnon, I think his ADP is around like 215 or something, super late, super deep stuff. But
he's free.
He's definitely somebody worth taking a flyer on if he's in the best offense in football. That's what I'll say.
I like it. I'm gonna go a little differentiation on this. I've talked about Elijah Moore, who I do like a lot, by the way. Some people have caught up on him. Some people have, and I think the fantasy community is ahead. The Twitter community is ahead of the general population. It always is. I mean, we're kind of nerds and people who care about this so much. So with the Sharps, he's 9th round, 10th round. It's hard to get. You're going to get him in your home league. Wide receiver 66 is ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I just can't. 66,
That's like candy from baby.
It is. It's candy from baby. And then Ray Guy just tweeted out a De'Ami Brown nice little move. Oh my gosh, I love De'Ami Brown.
Did you see who he roasted on that route?
What was it? Somebody from Kansas City? Was it Fuller?
No, it was. He's on Washington.
No, but he was.
Yeah. So Kendall Fuller, the best corner on Washington football team, was 1-on-1, and De'Ami ran that diamond release where he faked the go on the outside and just cut the slant and completely just toasted the best corner on one of the best defenses in the league. That's a rookie that out of North Carolina. Everybody's talking about Javonte Williams and Michael Carter because they're great running backs at North Carolina. Sam Howell's going to be a top 5 pick next year out of North Carolina. But the 2 receivers that got drafted out of North Carolina, De'Ami Brown and Daz Newsome, they're turning heads already at camp. And De'Ami he's the guy that just burning guys deep all season long. He burned Clemson deep. He burned everybody. And he makes big acrobatic catches. He's always open. And that was an amazing, amazing draft pick by the Washington football team because Terry McLaurin's amazing. Everybody loves him. Curtis Samuel's like a Swiss Army knife. He can play just about everywhere on the field. You needed a guy who's going to be able to beat guys deep and make big plays that if you're facing the off corner, that you're going to have somebody at the Z position to take over and make those big plays. Because Fitz if he keys in on Terry McLaurin, he's going to throw lots of picks, lots and lots of picks. That's what he does. When he keys on one guy, he telegraphs it, and that's why he's been on every team in the league. He's a high volatility player. Giving him more options is great. And Dyami Brown's a special wide receiver talent, and I'm really excited to have a lot of exposure to him because he's a big play waiting to happen.
Oh yeah, and in best ball, I mean, you can't go wrong in the 18th round, 19th, 1000th round, 69,000, whatever round you can get him in. Personally,
69, nice.
69. By the way, I just have to say, last week, maybe before the show happened, or somewhere between now and the show, I had 6,969 followers, and I was following 6,969 people. And then,
amazing.
But I did tell my wife, if I get to this, I need a 69 tonight. And she said, "You're not getting to that. It's like far away." And then I just put my little Twitter magic out there, and the next thing you know, I was like,
it was like 45 minutes later. She should never doubt you in the Twitter game.
You should not. So thanks,
but,
Twitter. For that.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm gonna take and say I am higher on Dyami Brown than the general public because I've been drafting him all winter, all spring, all summer. He's a special player, and he was a mid round guy that kind of there's a lot of great receivers in this class just like last year. And so what are you gonna do? You're gonna look for the guys that nobody's talking about. And some of our sharp friends, John Helmkamp, shout out the beard. Him and I have been lockstep on Dyami Brown since the beginning because you watch that North Carolina tape from last year, you see 4 players really stand out: Javonte, Michael Carter, Daz Newsome, and then Dyami Brown. They all were just very impressive prospects coming out. That Mac Brown recruiting trail that he's been on since he took over that job there has been very impressive, and it's still going. But yeah, Dyami Brown's one of my favorites. I've been taking a lot of Marquez Callaway even now because people still don't believe that he has what it takes as an undrafted player to step into the role that Michael Thomas has vacated. We saw it all last season. We saw the chance for Traquan Smith to be that guy. All season long, Michael Thomas was either hurt or pretending to be hurt or going and causing fights because somebody called him what he was, which is slant boy. Like call him what he is, and he gets mad and socks a guy for saying it. It's like, okay, you're the best slant route runner we've ever seen. Punch me. Yeah, get suspended right as you're coming back healthy, and then get hurt while you're suspended. Yeah, he doesn't want to play for the team. And all those vacated targets were kind of spread evenly because Traquan Smith isn't the alpha guy that they want him to be. And Marquez Callaway might not be that guy, but he works harder. He simply comes to work, lunch pail type player, undrafted, everything in the world to prove. And so I got him way up for underdog. So I was getting him at 205, 211 at the very last pick, and I'm still getting him in the 16th or 17th round on underdog. So it's not like I'm having to spend up for a guy who could very well take over a very meaningful role in an offense that features the X receiver primarily and over and over and over again.
I'll say this about Marquez Callaway. I was looking on, I'll say, said website that I am subscribed to. Marquez Callaway is wide receiver number 2 in terms of fantasy points per dollar for week 1.
Sign me up. Number 2. Sign me up. Number 2.
Number 2.
Because I bet you he's, 3,100, 3,300, something down there.
I haven't looked at his salary, but he's got to be under 34 at least. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, yeah, what does he need? 9 points to pay off? Okay. Just twist my arm as far as you want because I'm going to take that guy.
And this is what I mean when I say, like, take your time to do the research. Like, it seems so difficult to, like, fully take down a GPP or win 50K or a million. Like it takes, like there's people that like, okay, there's going to be one guy that plays the third string running back on New England that has 5 catches and 100 yards and a touchdown. Nobody's going to do that except for some random ass dude. But like when it comes down to it, like if you do the research, like you will win money if you take the time. Like I always say, take an hour out of your week, sit down, look at it, look at projections, look at who's being undervalued, overvalued. There's free articles all throughout the industry. Like if you want to go to shameless plug, goingfor2.com, all of our articles are free. Yeah, that's my shameless plug, I got to do it. But, like we do all this stuff and there's people all around the country that write about things like this, like who's the dynasty guy that's being undervalued. Like you can find this stuff for absolutely free. And I just take the time out of your week if you're going to sit down and play DFS to do a little bit of research. There's my guy, Fantasy G. He says he's got Scott's guy.
I love it.
So Scott, I think we should skip right to the DFS stuff because the cold players I'm not really interested in. Redraft I'm really also not interested. Let's get the DFS guy to talk DFS. So that's you, Scott.
I know I'm glitching right now a little bit, unfortunately. Why don't you jump in, Bo? I'm not glitching.
So our DFS talk is brought to you by Run the Sims. And so if you don't know what Run the Sims is, it's this website that is on fire. Like it's the most information you could find at the drop of a hat. Like you snap your fingers and you got thousands of simulations to give you probabilities of certain things happening. If you're playing DFS, they give you props for that. They'll run simulations, thousands of them every 30 seconds, I think it is. You're getting so much information at your fingertips like that. And so we're going to be using their tools all season to gather data, to interpret data, to figure out how likely is it that the guy we like or the guy we don't like proves us wrong or proves us right. We're going to be taking that data. If you go to Run the Sims, I think now until a couple more days, it's free. And then they're going to throw up a paywall, and it's still going to be worth it because it's got so much at your fingertips. It's not just DFS. It's prop bets. It's betting in general. It's your season long rankings. Everything is right there. It's really well put together. The website is spectacular. I love the format. But Scott, can you give us the website, the link? It's runthesims.com/nimble.
It is, yes. /nimble.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, go and check it out. Figure out what you like, what you want to subscribe to, because once that paywall goes up, I think you want to know that where your money is going, and it's going to be great because it's really going to help you win a lot of money this year. So, Jared, how do you prepare the NFL slate each week?
That's a good question. I think the most interesting thing for me is to sit down and look at what guy is underpriced. Okay, so we have what I call one-offs. And I'm sure anyone that's in the community knows what one-offs are. But I'm looking at week 1 just for an example. This might not be my one-off guy, but I'm probably looking at like Rieger, or I'm looking at Devontae Smith, who I both think are underpriced in a high over-under game, which I think is going to be an absolute shootout. And the reason why people are like, oh, why do you like those two guys? The reason why is because I like Atlanta's side. Like I want that run back option. So I'm looking at like Kyle Pitts. I think Matt Ryan's kind of overpriced. So I think you're going to see you're going to see Pitts have a ton of ownership, but I don't think you're going to see Ryan have a ton. So like in GPPs, it might make sense. But when I sit down and like fill out a roster, and this is super different in the past like 3 or 4 years, like I used to punt tight end. I never punt tight end anymore. Like I am the guy that's going to pay up for the top 4 almost every single week. And if you're playing against me in any one of our tournaments, I will own one of the top 4 tight ends. Like that's just how I build lineups now. I think the tight end position is super different now than it's ever been before in the entire NFL. So I usually start with which tight end do I like? What kind of matchup does he have? What kind of linebacker, cornerback matchups is he going to have? I usually start with tight end, which is kind of bizarre because like most people are like, oh, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna play Christian McCaffrey, I'm gonna play Dalvin Cook, and then I'm gonna fill out the rest of my roster. Like it kind of depends. Like, what position do you think is undervalued? So I think personally, I think wide receiver 2 and 3 are undervalued, and I think tight end is undervalued when you're talking about paying up. Like those are the positions that I think get undervalued. I think what can win you a GPP is the most bizarre thing in the world, but it's defense. And I seem to never get them right. Honest to God, like I'll be like, oh yeah, the 49ers are playing the Jets. They're going to score at least 8 and they score like 6. I'm like, what? Why did I do that?
Scott knows all about that. Scott knows all about that.
Yeah. So when I look at defenses, like I cannot figure out defense for the life of me. And it's one of the things that like holds me back from being like a lot better. But I usually start with tight end. Whichever tight end I like, whichever game flow I like. Game flow is a real thing. If you don't know about game flow or game script, you got to kind of look into that too. Like I said, there's a ton of information about all this stuff. I mean, like the prototypical thing is to like look at Dak Prescott in the first 3 weeks of last year. You knew they weren't going to be good on defense. You knew they weren't going to stop anybody. You knew that Dak and the offense was going to be good. But at the end of the day, that just means a lot of points. So like you can play a guy like Ben Schultz, who nobody else is really even think of. So it kind of like goes a long way to like look into things like that. Like I can't stress that enough. Like sitting down and being like, what would have to happen for my team to have success? That's kind of how I think about it.
Very good point.
And in week 1, there's a lot of people that like the Bengals, even against my own Vikings. And you know what? I sit there and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, Burrow's kind of underpriced. The receivers are kind of underpriced.
Joe Mixon is extremely underpriced.
I mean,
underpriced. Joe Mixon is the best running back value on that board.
I sit there and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get it. I don't expect the Vikings to hold them to less than 17 points, but I also don't expect the Vikings to score less than 24 points. Like I think it's going to be a good game. Like I think there's going to be the right game flow for a DFS game. And so I think that's the biggest thing is like if you're stacking, San Francisco versus the Rams, like what has to happen for your things to pay out? Like I just don't think there's a game flow in that type of scenario. The defenses are too good, like you have to look into more things than like, okay, the game is going to be like, you can't just sit there and look at like over unders, although it does help to like look there and be like, okay, this game's low over under, I'm going to avoid it. But like what has to happen for it to get there? I think that's the biggest thing when I'm building my lineups is, okay, we'll take another example, in division example. Let's take the Carolina Panthers versus, we'll say the San Francisco, or not San Francisco, we'll say the Saints. That game to me on paper says snooze fest, but in real life, that game could absolutely light up the scoreboard, which is where you get teams that are under-owned in certain spots. And I think that is the biggest thing when you're talking about DFS is like, if you have the guy if your entire lineup is 15% or higher, you're not going to take down a GPP. You need that one-off or that guy or that stack that a lot of people are kind of sleeping on. So you have to kind of like look deeper into things.
I agree. You have to get super creative, like starting 2 tight ends. And Bo knows all about that because that's what happened last year. I got the Tyler Higbee 3 touchdowns in week 2. And so you got to have that. If you don't have something,
and Jordan Reed 2 touchdowns the same week.
I also don't like 2 tight ends, but if it's Kyle Pitts in week 1, I'm on board.
I mean, I don't like it, but between the 2 of them, I think that they were around less than $7,000. So for me, it was a
I think Yeah, Higbee was 33 and Jordan Reed was 26.
26. Yeah, maybe less than 6. So that, to me, they let me get in a bunch of other guys. Let me pair up Justin Jefferson with our guy Kirk, the Cousins. You like that Cousins? So I'm with you. I really find it intriguing that you isolate the tight end position first. That's a great strategy. I think I'm going to steal that from you and do that myself a little bit this year. So thank you.
Yeah, I usually end with tight end. I try to fit the tight end I want in, but afterwards. But I'm more of a cash game player. I like to go with high probability. And my track record says cash games are really good for me because I won 88% of the time last year in cash games. And I still did pretty well on GPP, especially later in the season when I kind of found a groove there because you're going to have some cold spells. That's really what the name of the game is. Just hit it once, hit it twice, and then you're set. That's what you're playing for. You're playing for that big splash. And I even did really well in week 2 when Scott went bonkers. But it just came down to, for me, it was finding the right stacks that weren't on the everybody's looking at, who are the most popular stacks? It's always Mahomes and Hill or Mahomes and Kelsey, or your Jefferson Cousins stack might be really popular if you're playing the Falcons. And that's fine, but I like getting the stacks, like you said, in the games that nobody's really going to watch, like the red zone only games. Like nobody's going to even touch the game on the dial unless it's coming up on red zone that somebody scored. And if you can find those high total games where people are going to be scoring touchdowns and the pricing's right and the ownership is depressed because nobody cares, that's where you win. You win those games that really people are wanting to see the fireworks in the main televised games. But yeah, you can make just as much money or more banking on games that nobody really cares about otherwise.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Jared. One thing that we've seen in the past when you're trying to nail down defenses, and it's a tricky thing to nail down defenses, is running a defense back with a running back, making a correlation between your defense, your running back, kind of telling yourself that game script of this defense is going to be stopping the other side. You're going to be running, controlling the clock with the running back. What do you kind of do when you're trying to build your lineups with your defenses? Do you pair them with your running backs? Or are you kind of off and doing whatever you want with your defenses, or just punting like I do?
So actually, a buddy of mine from high school that I've known for 15 years tipped me off to this stack. He said, you take your defense and you run it back with a running back that's serviceable on that team. And I said, okay, that I guess that makes sense. You're going to run the ball, you're going to eat the clock. You're gonna pressure the other team because they're gonna be down. You're gonna be running after their quarterback. I'm like, in reality, that makes a lot of sense. Like I never thought about it that way. Like breaking down defenses. I always thought of defenses like, okay, the 49ers are playing the Jets. I'm gonna play that defense when they might get me 6. Give up 13 points and get a few sacks. Like that's just kind of how I've always looked at defenses. I want the best defense against the worst team. But in reality, when it comes to scoring defensive points, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because if that team is completely out of the game, they might be trying to throw a little bit, but you might get a sack or two here from there, but you're not going to get any like defensive touchdowns from it. Like they're not going to just pour it on. That's the way I always think about it. Yes, I like the running back and defense stack. I think it's one of the most underrated stacks in the entire DFS industry. And without my friend from high school, I would probably never realize to be tipped on that. So shout out to my buddy from high school that tipped me off to that.
Shout out that one guy.
That guy.
Yeah,
you don't want to be that guy.
Scott's experience with me was I actually I played the Patriots defense against the Chargers last year in that 40-0 game. And I think they scored 27 points on $2,500 salary. And so you can hit those those one-off type defenses, and I kind of do it that way. Like you mentioned, one-off like wide receivers or one-off running backs that nobody's really playing. But for me, I like to play the one-off defenses. Even if I'm looking from the bottom up on those ones. Actually, I'm starting at the very bottom of the barrel, see the cheapest ones, and look for potential. Like if they're $2,000, I'm looking for how likely is it that they're going to score 6 to 7 points, 6 to 8 points. And if they're 2,500, how likely are they to score 10? And that's it for me. It works because I might go all the way up to a $3,000 defense or a $3,800 defense because I don't like where the projections lead me. But most times I'm spending at the bottom. Like I'm looking at like this week 1, I'm looking at the Falcons defense at $2,000 because Jalen Hurts, as explosive as he is at scoring points, I know he's gonna commit 2 to 3 turnovers in that game.
I feel like said website that I looked at today said the exact same thing. I'm not going to say the website, but that was the exact play. But like,
because let's say they get 0 points from points allowed, they get 0 from that, but they recover a fumble and maybe we get lucky and they score a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown. That's also extremely possible. That's what we're looking for at the bottom of the barrel. You're spending $2,000. That's the lowest price on the board for any position, and I can fill everything else. I can get the guy I really want that's at the top of the price scale if I have a $2,000 defense that might score me 6 to 8 points.
I love it.
I think the quick answer is whatever defense fits, because I don't look at defense first. But there's also people that have scored, 16 to 20 from their defense that break the slate. Like that's a big thing that happens. And it's kind of bizarre when you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, I put up 150 from my skill positions, but my defense got me 6, and that's what killed me, which is super bizarre in fantasy. But I think that my honest answer is I'm going to take the stack before I take the defense. But I mean, there's other people that's the life of DFS right there.
Yeah.
No.
What do you do week to week? Because everything is week to week. We're all about the instant gratification in this game.
Yeah, and I'm going to share with the audience if I can figure it all out here. Working on it, I think I can. A tool that I used last year over at nimblewnumbers.com, and it helped to actually give you a visual representation every week of the points that were scored from all positions. This happens to just be the defensive points that were scored. And let me make the window a little smaller so you can get a bigger scale of this. But it was hard to have repeat winners every single week. But as you can see, each week you can kind of sort and see where people were. The first week last year, New Orleans Saints, they were 17 points. Then the next week they were 4 and then -3. So you really have to stay completely fluid with defenses and look at those matchups and think about, like what you said, those game scripts and how who's going to turn the ball over, how you're getting that defensive touchdown to differentiate yourself. Say it twice for you.
Words are hard.
They're so hard. But here's the thing: if you do hit it right, then you have a great potential to win. And in this week right here, in week, I think it was week 7, Washington scored 17 points. I had them; they were like min price then. Those are the weeks that you want to try to get on this board. And guessing who's going to turn green each week is tricky because you can see the dark represents each week where it's at, and it jumps around every single week.
So random.
It is random, and unless you get those matchups that you just kind of see that your team is completely overmatched and the other team has no offensive weapons, a la, this year if Deshaun Jackson doesn't play for Houston and Houston goes up against a good defense, I don't think they're going to suck out 3 touchdowns at the back end, honestly.
Houston sucks either way. And there's no way Watson's not going to step foot on the field in a Texans uniform ever again. There's no way. And I know this sounds like a broken record.
When it comes to defense, I kind of touted this show earlier in our podcast tonight. The Armchair show that they do a DFS show on Friday right before us. Tim for whatever reason, seems to nail the defense. So I always say play Tim's defense. I don't know. I don't care who Tim says. I just lock it in. That's just one of my guys that like seems to just nail defense. And I look at it as like, yeah, that's the one position I can ever nail. So whatever Tim says, that's who I go with.
I'd like to meet Tim. I need to meet Tim.
Tim's the shit.
I need some Tim. No, I like it. Well,
you need a lot of Tims to beat
I
me.
need a lot of you
need a Tim at every position.
All right. Let's we're a little bit over. That's fine though. Thank you for jumping in and asking and answering and being all over the place. All these DFS hot takes, which I love. We're going to get back to the controversial food take, and this is Bo's department. So I'm just going to tell you my controversial food take off the break. Sour cream is gross. That's my controversial food take. I don't like white sour cream. I like white cream. I like whipped cream. I like ice cream. I don't like when you take something that I like is sweet and creamy and make it sour. It just ruins it for me. Sorry. Go have some, sour something else if you want sour. Don't sour my cream. That's me. What about you, though? Do you have any controversial food takes that are going to like get you banned from ever coming back on the show?
And yes, we're absolutely going to judge you.
I already made it. I'm a guy that orders a quesadilla, no salsa, extra sour cream.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just can't dip my quesadilla in salsa, but some people like to live that way. But I love sour cream. Other controversial food take is I hate, my wife loves it, but I hate stir fry.
Oh. That's a lot of variety too. You can pretty much do anything with a stir fry. So you haven't had a stir fry that you liked yet?
No. I hate vegetables. Hate them.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. See, as a vegetable lover, I get it because when I was a kid, I hated vegetables too. But now that I've been working with so much food my whole adult life, like I just love vegetables now because I know how to season them. I know how to make them taste good. But yeah, white family, under-seasoned everything growing up. And you have to learn how to season your food properly. That's why you should go to bigtimeflavor.co and learn how to just put those products on your food to make it taste better. I think if you put some Big Time Flavor Co. products on your stir fry, it would be tolerable.
I'll tell you.
Make the woman happy. Say, hey, the only way I can tolerate stir fry.
I'll tell you what.
I'll tell you 3 heads of broccoli and the whole thing.
The one thing that me and my entire family agree on is we all hate tomatoes, so that's all that matters.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to ban Jared from coming on. Thanks for coming, Jared. This has been
his sour cream take is dead spot on.
Is Scott a tomato lover? Because I'm about to get off right now.
I love salsa. I love pizza. I love extra sauce on pizza. I like spicy sauce. I love tomatoes. Sir, how can you not?
That sounds great except for tomatoes. Like tomatoes as a whole are horrible.
I don't like raw tomatoes, but I'll eat any form of cooked tomatoes.
Yeah, you give me tomato soup, I'll eat it. Give me pizza sauce, I love it. All that.
He doesn't like raw tomatoes, and that's perfectly normal because that's gross too.
Exactly. Bo gets me.
This is ridiculous. And here we are, about to pump your Twitter and get people to go follow you.
He doesn't like sour creamy things, but he loves slimy things that are full of seeds and slime.
Get out of here, Bo. I'm looking for a new co-host next week as well.
Actually, no, you probably don't want to do that.
No, not next week. I'll start after the next week. Next week.
So can we officially announce who's coming on next week now?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So, the other day, was it yesterday? Time just runs together. I've lost track of all time, but this gentleman, you might have heard of him, Field Yates from ESPN. Small figure in the community. He's a really handsome guy. He's around the same age as me. He's just up and comer. He's an up and comer in the fantasy community. But he's going to be on Chalk Block next week, a week from tonight. And it's a special episode of Chalk Block next week because we're going to be broadcasting live poolside at my house. Scott and I are going to be poolside at my house together for the Nimble Summit. And we're going to have, I'm guessing Field isn't going to come out to California for us, but even if he's staying in Connecticut next to the ESPN headquarters, we'll take it either way. But yeah, Field Yates from ESPN's coming on. It's going to be amazing. But we're completely blown away because he called me a legend 2 days ago. Legend. Yeah, and so I can't even fit. I have to turn sideways to go through doorways now because my head has swollen to an unbelievable size. My ego is out of control. I've already I got this before we go. I have to show you this video. It's 2 seconds long. I sent it to Scott earlier today, but
Technical difficulties.
Now on Bo's side.
Bo is a legend.
That's awesome.
Is a legend.
Who said that?
keep going.
Bo is a legend.
That's him right there. Oh, there we go.
That's
Man,
gratuitous.
terrible
Bo.
guy.
Keep it in your pants, Bo. Put it away, Bo. We've all seen it.
Is a legend.
Is that your new alarm clock to wake up in the morning?
It is.
Oh, he's
yeah.
a legend. Oh yeah, I'm ready to go.
I'm getting out of bed for that.
Oh my god.
So yeah, thanks to Field already. I got to share airtime with him a couple on Memorial Day, and then I sent him some of my big time flavor products. He loves them, and he's going to come on Chalk Block, which obviously Scott and I are thrilled as much as we can be, and we're probably going to be even more thrilled that we're going to be cracking skulls at the same time from my backyard, and it's going to be special. Yeti, you're special too. I
can't follow up Field Gates ESPN fantasy football, but
he's going to have a hard time following you though.
I wouldn't go that far. I'll wait for his follow before I'll acknowledge it.
All right. So Scott,
I
pump your stuff.
I think this is the big finish. I think I can actually, I made it, kinda. No? Am I still here?
You did. Yeah,
Oh,
you're here.
Okay.
You're not even frozen like you were last week with Cooter Doodle.
Oh my gosh. All right. Lots of things to go do. Go follow me, Nimble W Numbers, on Twitter. Go follow at Chalk Blocked on Twitter. Go follow the FF Hot Stove on Twitter. Go follow the FF Millionaires on Twitter. Tune into all those shows. Also, subscribe, please, to our YouTube, Nimble W Numbers YouTube account. Just go into YouTube, put Nimble W Numbers YouTube. You'll find me really easy. All these shows are here. The Yeti show is here. Field Yates' show next week will be here. Go check that out. Subscribe. We're at 196. If we get 200 people, I'm really excited. It'd be really awesome. Also, next week with Mr. Field Yates, we're going to be talking about how we are giving away on this show a free subscription to runthesims.com, an NFL subscription this year via Nimble W Numbers. We're giving it away. We'll talk about the details of Field next week, so stick around. You want to know how to win that free subscription. You can play all year for free. You get all the tools on Run the Sims. Please check that out. And then last but not least, by the way, go to Big Time Flavor Co. Right? Is that right? Big Time
Flavor.co.
BigTimeFlavor.co right now. Order your bundle. And then as you're eating your hot sauce and as you're just drinking it down, you're ripping off the top and guzzling it, join us on Underdog. You know what I'm saying? Get in there. I'm Nimble W Numbers. He's Bo _ Big Time. This is who we are. We are those people on Underdog. Come play with us. Promo code Nimble. We'll be there all summer long, and then we're going to be there in the fall. If you haven't picked up on the new games that they have, the Pick'em game and the Rivals game, I won $10. I picked 4 out of 5 correct. CD Lamb not playing was a push for me, which is great. So I got 4 out of 5, 4 for 4. I won $10 on $1. I 10 maxed my money. It's not betting. It's underdogging. And you need to get on it right now. Promo code Nimble. Get some money.
Underdog.
And I think that's it. And here's some crazy news. In my show this is something that did happen to my computer, Bo, because in my show file where I have all the commercials for the show, I'm missing a few commercials. So I'm sorry.
Womp womp.
We Too Hot Karate. Ja, We Too Hot Karate. Da, da, da. We missed you, buddy. You can get in there. We Too Hot. Get karateing over at We Too Hawk. It's a great place. It's somewhere.
Say Too Hot. Say Too Hot Karate.
I don't know. Say Too Hawk. We Too Hawk. You know, there's a lot of hawks in there. So Say Too Hot Karate. Go patron them, please. And go follow the Yeti Express and read his stuff on Going for Two. We love Jeff, by the way, even though that maniac tried to, in my league that I'm in with him, that I invited him into the Crab Cake League, he tried to put a third round reversal into the DMs as an option for the league. You almost got murdered in the DMs. I wanted to tell you that. I told him no way in hell, and I said, F that. So besides that, though, I love Jeff, and it's okay he did that. I forgive him. I'm not going to mention it on any more podcasts. Jeff is the only one, but you guys know Jeff, so you know he's awesome. So please check all them out, follow them, and I think that's it, Bo. I think we're good. I think we're done.
Yeah, I mean, Going for Two is. We're ready to go here. About to drop a humongous article on that I finished. It took me weeks to finish. It's going to be, instead of doing weekly picante takes, which are my own spicy picante takes, we're going to do a preseason picante takes. I did it. I finished. It's about to be published on goingfor2.com. Look out for that tweet, because I'm predicting the fate of every NFL team. I'm predicting the playoff matchups. I'm predicting the NFL honors at the end of the year. It's a massive article, and it's about to hit your airwaves. And so check it out. I definitely want feedback on it. I don't care if you hate it. I don't care if I'm blowing your team out of the water to smithereens. But I did a lot of research. I built this thing. It literally took me 3 weeks to write this sucker. I want all the feedback. I want all the smoke, good or bad. I don't care. I really don't care. I want to hear all the anger. I want to let it flow to me. Like, tell me how wrong I am, and then come and see me after the season, and we'll hash it out.
We'll settle up scores. Yeah,
I'll tell you this, Bo. Before we get off, if you got my Vikings at 4, I'm gonna fly out and kick your ass, because we are not going to be at 4. I'll tell you that much right now.
How big a boy are you?
I will say this: the Going for Two community is phenomenal. I kind of just like stumbled into this whole like fantasy football community, and I absolutely loved it. And Scott was a guy that I kind of like admired in a way, because like he's reached out to me, I reached out to him, and it was so cool to just like hang out for an hour with him. So I was so happy to be here. And if you guys ever need a guest podcast guy, hit me up. I'm always here, guys. Thank you very much.
I love it, and we're gonna make it so that you have to come play with us this year in DraftKings every week in our weekly league that we're gonna do, the Nimble League. We're just gonna do 20 people, 50 people, whatever it is each week. We're gonna get in there, $10, $5. We're gonna go for the glory, and so we definitely need you in there every week, mixing it up with us. That's what we want. We want community. So this is how it works. You play DFS against us. You play fantasy football against us. You come on our show. You talk mad shit. We talk shit back, and then we settle up on the DFS scores again. It's a great cycle to be in. DFS, shit talk, DFS. Me and Bo are not locked into that at all, because I can't talk any shit. I can't talk any shit because he's beat me down so much. I'm just gonna have to cry myself to sleep with the money I won last year to make myself feel better. So
one of these weeks, I'm gonna ask who's writing 4 articles. That's all I know.
Oh man, and the name of my article I wrote for my own site was something like "Eating White Dog Shit" was the name of the article. Check that one out.
That was the one thing I told him that I wanted the title of my article to be for him to write, is him eating white dog shit like in Step Brothers.
Yeah, so I did. I capitulated on that.
He titled it. He posted the picture of him eating white dog shit on Step Brothers and titled it exactly what I told him to. And it didn't taste very good, did it, Scott?
No. But I'm coming back this year, and
I think that was the week I scored like 220 on him in a head-to-head, so he was very happy with it.
I'm holding all this against you, Bo. in the
I think that was the Tyreek Hill week, I believe.
against.
I'm not sure. Yeah, against the Chiefs.
Yeah,
oh yeah, against the Bucks in week 7.
This is now turning into my therapy session, which my therapist says is not good to have in front of others. So we're gonna have to go before I blow a fuse on Bo, and that's not.
I'm going to the casino anyway. So
all right, tune in next week. Special edition from Bo's poolside. I may or may not be wearing a coconut kini, as they call them. So we appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys next time. We are on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, and I think I'm going to nail the exit, Bo. Let's see if I can do it.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Do current market conditions have you nervous? Our experienced team of financial professionals at Heritage Harbor Financial Associates understands that no two investors are alike. We all have different goals, needs, and appetites for risk. That's why the one-size